Lawrence Griffin stared in disbelief as the Galactic Council voted to abandon an entire species to extinction. The young Orion female standing before them, Deneb, was the last hope for her race. Yet the Council, in its infinite wisdom, had deemed her too dangerous to save. The Council chambers buzzed with activity. Representatives from thousands of alien species filled the vast auditorium, their forms as diverse as the stars themselves. Lawrence, the sole human diplomat, felt small among the towering aliens and advanced biotechnology surrounding him. The motion to quarantine the Orion female and cease all aid to their species has passed, announced the council speaker, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline vessel. May the cosmos have mercy on their souls. Lawrence's fist clenched at his sides. He had come to this emergency session expecting to discuss trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Instead, he found himself witness to what he could only describe as galactic genocide. The Orions, once a thriving civilization spanning dozens of star systems, now faced oblivion. A devastating genetic mutation had swept through their population, causing rapid cellular degeneration in 99.9% of their people. It left them infertile and dying, their once great empire crumbling to dust. Deneb stood silently on the central platform, her iridescent skin shimmering under the harsh lights. She was young, barely more than a child by Orion standards, yet she carried the weight of her entire species on her slender shoulders. Lawrence stepped forward, his voice echoing through the chamber. This is unacceptable. We can't simply abandon them. Humanity has made great strides in genetic engineering and reproductive technology. We might be able to find a cure. The speaker's energy form pulsed with what Lawrence interpreted as annoyance. The risk of this mutation spreading to other species is too great. The decision is final. The Orion female will be placed in quarantine immediately. As guards moved to escort Deneb away, Lawrence's mind raced. He couldn't let this happen. In that moment, he made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Using his diplomatic credentials, Lawrence accessed the station's secure communication array. He sent an encrypted message to Earth, initiating a covert operation that would either save two species or doom them both. Within hours, a team of elite human operatives had infiltrated the station. They extracted Deneb from quarantine and smuggled her aboard a waiting ship. As they broke orbit, alarms blared throughout the station. The Galactic Council had discovered their deception. Lawrence knew the consequences would be severe. Earth would face sanctions, embargoes, perhaps even military action. But as he looked at Deneb, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope, he knew it was worth the risk. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving the Council's forces behind. Their destination, a secret research facility on Earth, where the brightest minds in human genetics waited to tackle the challenge of saving the Orion species. As the stars streaked by outside the viewport, Lawrence realized the enormity of what he had done. He had defied the will of the Galactic Council, risked interstellar war, all to save a single alien girl. But in doing so, he had also opened the door to potentially revolutionary advancements in human genetics. The fate of two species now rested in human hands. Lawrence Griffin, diplomat turned renegade, had just sparked a chain of events that would reshape the galaxy. And it all began with a simple choice: to extend a helping hand when everyone else had turned away. The sleek starship cut through Earth's atmosphere, descending towards a vast expanse of sun-baked desert. Lawrence Griffin sat at the controls, his eyes darting between the navigation display and the arid landscape below. Beside him, Deneb watched with wide-eyed fascination as the alien world grew closer. "We're almost there," Lawrence said, his voice tight with tension. "How are you holding up?" Deneb's iridescent skin shimmered as she turned to face him. "I am functional," she replied, her voice a melodic whisper. "This world is so different from my own, so bright, so dry." Lawrence nodded, understanding the unspoken fear in her words. They were about to land on a planet that might hold the key to saving her species, or become their final resting place. The ship touched down on a hidden landing pad, kicking up a cloud of dust. As the engines powered down, a section of the desert floor slid open, revealing a state-of-the-art elevator platform. Lawrence and Deneb stepped onto it, descending into the heart of Earth's most advanced genetic research facility. Dr. Elena Reeves stood waiting for them, her lab coat crisp and her expression stern. Her eyes widened slightly at the sight of Deneb, but she quickly composed herself. "Mr. Griffin," she said, her tone clipped, "I hope you understand the gravity of what you've done. You've put Earth at risk of interstellar conflict." Lawrence met her gaze steadily. "I understand the risks, Doctor, but I also understand the potential. We have a chance to save an entire species and make unprecedented advancements in genetic science." Dr. Reeves's expression softened slightly. She turned to Deneb, her scientific curiosity evident. "Welcome to Earth. I'm Dr. Elena Reeves. With your permission, we'd like to begin a series of non-invasive tests to analyze your genetic structure." Deneb nodded solemnly. "I offer myself in service of my people's survival." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Lawrence watched as Deneb underwent countless scans and tests, her bravery never wavering. He found himself spending more and more time with her, explaining Earth customs and listening to her stories of Orion culture. One evening, as they sat in the facility's garden dome, Deneb's skin rippled with a soft blue glow. "Tell me, Lawrence," she said, "why did you risk so much to save me, to save my people?" Lawrence was silent for a moment, considering. "Because it was the right thing to do," he finally said. "Humanity has faced its own challenges, its own near extinctions. We've learned that survival often depends on the kindness of others." As the days passed, Dr. Reeves and her team made a startling discovery. Deneb's DNA showed an extraordinary ability to adapt and self-repair, explaining her fertility despite the mutation affecting her species. "This is groundbreaking," Dr. Reeves explained during a team meeting. "The implications for human medicine are staggering. We could potentially develop treatments for genetic disorders, extend human lifespans, even enhance our own adaptive capabilities." But as excitement grew within the facility, so did an unseen threat. Kralthax, the Zorgon operative, had successfully infiltrated Earth's defenses. Now, disguised as a maintenance worker, he moved through the facility's corridors, gathering intelligence and searching for weaknesses. Meanwhile, Lawrence noticed Deneb's health beginning to decline. Her skin lost its luster, and she tired easily. Dr. Reeves ran more tests, her face grim as she delivered the results. "Deneb's unique biology is reacting negatively to Earth's environment," she explained. "We need to find a solution quickly, or we risk losing her and our chance to save the Orion species." Lawrence paced the length of the lab, his mind racing. "What if," he said slowly, "we could temporarily alter human DNA to be more compatible with Orion biology? Could that provide the data we need?" Dr. Reeves looked at him sharply. "Theoretically, yes. But the risks—" "I'll do it," Lawrence interrupted. "Use me as the test subject." The lab erupted into debate. Some argued it was too dangerous. Others saw it as their best chance for a breakthrough. As they argued, Deneb watched Lawrence, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and concern. Unbeknownst to them all, Kralthax listened from the shadows, his cybernetic implants recording every word. The Zorgon operative slipped away, transmitting his findings to his masters light years away. The stakes of this secret project had just become much higher. As the research team prepared for the potential genetic alteration of Lawrence Griffin, tensions both within and beyond the facility continued to rise. The fate of two species hung in the balance, with forces both seen and unseen poised to tip the scales. The debate in the research facility's conference room grew heated as Lawrence's proposal hung in the air. Dr. Reeves paced back and forth, her brow furrowed in concentration. "This is unprecedented, Mr. Griffin," she said, her voice tight with concern. "The risks to your own health are astronomical." Lawrence stood firm, his eyes darting between Dr. Reeves and Deneb, who sat quietly in the corner, her once vibrant skin now pale and listless. "We don't have time for caution," he insisted. "Deneb's condition is deteriorating by the hour. If we don't act now, we might lose our only chance to save her people." The room fell silent as the weight of the decision pressed down on them. Finally, Dr. Reeves nodded, her shoulders sagging slightly. "Very well, we'll proceed with the genetic alteration. but I want it on record that I have serious reservations about this course of action. Within hours, Lawrence found himself lying on a cold metal table in a specialized medical chamber. The room hummed with advanced machinery, holographic displays flickering with streams of data. Dr. Reeves stood over him, a syringe filled with a glowing blue liquid in her hand. This retrovirus contains modified Orion DNA sequences, she explained, her voice steady despite the tension in her eyes. Once injected, it will begin altering your genetic structure. Are you absolutely certain you want to go through with this? Lawrence took a deep breath, steeling himself. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. As the needle pierced his skin, Lawrence felt a burning sensation course through his veins. His body convulsed, muscles spasming as the retrovirus began its work. Through the haze of pain, he could hear the frantic voices of the medical team. His vitals are spiking. Cellular restructuring at 15% and climbing. We're losing him. Prepare the crash cart. Lawrence's vision blurred, the world around him fading to a dull roar. He felt as if his entire being was being torn apart and reassembled at the molecular level. As consciousness slipped away, his last thought was of Deneb and the hope that his sacrifice might save her. Hours passed in a fevered dream. Lawrence drifted in and out of awareness, catching snippets of conversation and flashes of light. When he finally opened his eyes, he found himself staring at a reflection he barely recognized. His skin had taken on a bluish tint, shimmering faintly under the harsh medical lights. He felt different, as if his body was now a foreign entity he had to relearn how to control. Dr. Reeves appeared at his bedside, her face a mixture of concern and scientific fascination. How do you feel, Mr. Griffin? Lawrence tried to speak, but his voice came out as a raspy whisper. Like I've been put through a blender and reassembled by a drunk engineer. But I'm alive. Did it work? Before Dr. Reeves could answer, alarms blared throughout the facility. A young researcher burst into the room, panic etched on her face. Dr. Reeves, it's Deneb. Her life support systems are failing. Lawrence struggled to sit up, ignoring the protests of his altered body. What's happening? Dr. Reeves was already moving, barking orders into her communicator. Get her stabilized. I'm on my way. She turned to Lawrence, her expression grim. Deneb's body is rejecting Earth's atmosphere faster than we anticipated. We've placed her in a sealed chamber with a customized atmospheric mix, but it's only buying us time. As they rushed to Deneb's chamber, Lawrence's mind raced. Had he undergone this risky procedure for nothing? Would they lose Deneb despite their best efforts? They arrived to find a flurry of activity around Deneb's sealed chamber. The young Orion lay motionless, her chest barely rising with shallow breaths. Dr. Reeves immediately began analyzing the data streaming across the monitors. Her respiratory system is shutting down, she muttered, fingers flying across the holographic interface. We need to find a permanent solution, and fast. As the team worked frantically to stabilize Deneb, none of them noticed the maintenance worker slipping quietly through the chaos. Kralthax, the Zorgon operative, moved with purpose, his cybernetic implants recording every detail of the unfolding crisis. Hours passed in a blur of activity. Lawrence, still weak from his own procedure, refused to leave Deneb's side. He watched helplessly as the medical team fought to keep her alive, his newly altered body a constant reminder of the stakes involved. It was during a rare moment of quiet that Dr. Reeves made a startling discovery. She burst into the room, her eyes wide with excitement. Lawrence, I need to run some additional tests on you immediately. What is it? Lawrence asked, his voice tinged with both hope and apprehension. The hybrid cells in your body, Dr. Reeves explained, already preparing her equipment. They're demonstrating an unprecedented ability to adapt and regenerate. I believe we may have stumbled upon a potential cure for the Orion mutation. As the implications of this discovery sank in, Lawrence felt a glimmer of hope. But that hope was quickly tempered by Dr. Reeves's next words. However, she continued, her voice heavy, to test this theory and potentially save Deneb, we would need to extract a significant amount of your altered genetic material. The process could have severe consequences for your health, possibly resulting in permanent changes to your human physiology. Lawrence looked at Deneb's pale form in the sealed chamber, then back at Dr. Reeves. The weight of the decision pressed down on him, the fate of two species hanging in the balance. Before he could respond, another alarm blared through the facility. Deneb's life support systems had been compromised, her condition deteriorating rapidly. In the ensuing chaos, no one noticed the maintenance worker slipping away, his mission accomplished. As the team scrambled to save Deneb, Lawrence made his decision. "Do it," he said, his voice firm despite the fear coursing through him. "Whatever it takes to save her." Dr. Reeves hesitated for a moment, torn between her scientific duty and her concern for Lawrence's well-being. Finally, she nodded, her face set with willpower. "Prepare for emergency extraction," she ordered her team. As they wheeled Lawrence into position beside Deneb's chamber, neither of them could have imagined the far-reaching consequences of their actions. Outside the facility, news of Earth's defiance of the Galactic Council's decree was spreading, causing ripples of change throughout the interstellar community. In the sterile confines of the research facility, two beings from different worlds lay side by side, their fates intertwined in ways they had never imagined. As the extraction process began, Lawrence closed his eyes, silently praying that his sacrifice would be enough to save not just Deneb, but her entire species. The hum of machinery filled the air, drowning out the sound of Lawrence's racing heart. Whatever the outcome, he knew that this moment would change the course of human and Orion history forever. The hum of machinery filled the air, drowning out the sound of Lawrence's racing heart. Whatever the outcome, he knew that this moment would change the course of human and Orion history. As Dr. Reeves prepared to begin the extraction process, a sudden darkness engulfed the room. The machines whirred to a stop, and an eerie silence fell over the facility. "What's happening?" Lawrence's voice cut through the darkness, tinged with panic. Dr. Reeves fumbled for her emergency light. "Power failure. This shouldn't be possible. We have multiple redundancies in place." As if in response to her words, dim emergency lights flickered to life, casting long shadows across the room. The backup generators had kicked in, but it was clear they were operating at minimal capacity. "Deneb's life support?" Lawrence asked, struggling to sit up. Dr. Reeves rushed to the sealed chamber, her fingers flying over the control panel. "It's stable, but barely. We don't have enough power for the extraction equipment or to maintain her customized atmosphere for long." Lawrence swung his legs over the side of the bed, ignoring the wave of dizziness that washed over him. "I need to help." "Absolutely not," Dr. Reeves protested. "You're in no condition to—" "My body's different now," Lawrence interrupted. "I might be able to handle the changing conditions better than anyone else here. You need all hands on deck." Dr. Reeves hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Fine, but at the first sign of trouble, you're back in bed." As Lawrence joined the frantic efforts to restore power, he noticed something strange. Faint pulses of energy, invisible to the others, seemed to emanate from various points throughout the facility. Intrigued, he followed one of these energy signatures, leading him to a hidden compartment in the wall. "Dr. Reeves," he called out, "you need to see this." Inside the compartment was a sophisticated surveillance device, unlike anything of Earth origin. As they searched the facility, they uncovered more of these devices, the realization dawning on them all. They had a saboteur in their midst. Amidst the chaos, a new face appeared. Dr. Marcus Ward, a tall man with sharp features and piercing eyes, strode into the room, his arrival unannounced due to the communication breakdown. "Dr. Reeves," he said, extending his hand, "I came as soon as I could. The security measures on Earth have become challenging." Dr. Reeves quickly brought him up to speed on the situation. Dr. Ward's eyes lit up as he examined the data from Lawrence and Deneb. "This is fascinating," he murmured. "The way the human and Orion DNA have interacted in Mr. Griffin's cells, it's given me an idea." He outlined his proposal, a radical method of human-Orion reproductive fusion. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "You're talking about creating a hybrid," Dr. Reeves said slowly. "That's unprecedented." "And ethically questionable," another researcher added. Lawrence stepped forward. "If it's our only chance to save Deneb and her species, I'll do it. I'm already part Orion now, aren't I? The debate raged on, but time was running out. Deneb's vital signs were growing weaker by the minute. Finally, Dr. Reeves made the call. We'll proceed with Dr. Ward's plan, she announced. Lawrence, are you absolutely sure about this? Lawrence nodded, his eyes fixed on Deneb's pale form in the chamber. I've never been more certain of anything. As they prepared for the procedure, security teams combed the facility, searching for the saboteur. Unbeknownst to them, Kralthax was already several steps ahead, having anticipated their discovery of his devices. The Zorgon operative moved silently through the shadows, his cybernetic implants allowing him to bypass the increased security measures with ease. His mission had changed. No longer content with merely gathering intelligence, he now sought to capture Deneb and deliver her to his superiors. In the main lab, Dr. Ward and Dr. Reeves worked feverishly to prepare for the experimental procedure. The limited power meant they had to work with makeshift equipment, every second feeling like a race against time. This is going to hurt, isn't it? Lawrence asked as they positioned him next to Deneb's chamber. Dr. Reeves met his eyes. I won't lie to you. Yes, it will. But if this works... It has to work, Lawrence said firmly. As they began the procedure, alarms blared throughout the facility. Security had detected an unauthorized presence in the restricted areas. The hunt for the saboteur had begun in earnest, but little did they know that Kralthax was already closing in on his target. In the lab, Lawrence gritted his teeth against the pain as Dr. Ward initiated the reproductive fusion process. His altered cells seemed to come alive, reaching out towards Deneb's genetic material in a dance of microscopic proportions. Outside, chaos reigned as security teams scrambled to locate the intruder. Kralthax moved ever closer, his Zorgon technology allowing him to stay one step ahead of his pursuers. As the procedure reached its critical phase, the power fluctuated dangerously. Dr. Reeves and Dr. Ward worked frantically to stabilize the equipment, knowing that any interruption now could be catastrophic. Lawrence, through a haze of pain, suddenly became aware of a presence. His newly heightened senses picked up a faint energy signature approaching the lab. With a jolt of realization, he understood. The saboteur was coming for Deneb. Dr. Reeves, he gasped, we're about to have company. The lab door slid open, revealing a figure silhouetted against the emergency lights. As Kralthax stepped into the room, the fate of two species hung in the balance, with the outcome of this confrontation poised to reshape the future of human-alien relations forever. As Kralthax stepped into the room, Lawrence's altered senses flared to life. He could perceive the subtle shifts in the air currents, the faint electromagnetic disturbances emanating from the Zorgon's cybernetic implants. Without hesitation, Lawrence leaped from the medical bed, positioning himself between the intruder and Deneb's chamber. Dr. Reeves, Dr. Ward, keep working, Lawrence said, his voice low and steady. I'll handle this. Kralthax's eyes narrowed, assessing the situation. Step aside, human. My quarrel is not with you. I'm afraid I can't do that, Lawrence replied, his muscles tensing for action. In that moment, the facility's security system blared to life, red lights flashing as a computerized voice announced, unauthorized access detected in lower levels. All personnel initiate lockdown procedures. Dr. Reeves glanced up from her work, her face etched with concern. Lawrence, we need you here for the procedure. There's no time, Lawrence said, his enhanced senses picking up the faint sounds of chaos erupting throughout the facility. I can move faster and quieter than anyone else. I'll find the source of the disturbance. Before anyone could protest, Lawrence darted past Kralthax and out of the lab. The Zorgon operative, momentarily caught off guard, spun to pursue but found his path blocked by Dr. Ward. I believe you have some explaining to do, Dr. Ward said, his voice calm but his eyes steely. As Lawrence navigated the dimly lit corridors, he marveled at his newfound abilities. His footsteps were nearly silent, his movements fluid and precise. He could detect minute vibrations through the floor, leading him unerringly toward the source of the disturbance. The power distribution center was a maze of conduits and control panels, bathed in the eerie glow of emergency lighting. Lawrence's keen eyes immediately spotted the signs of sabotage, severed cables, disrupted circuitry, and the faint residue of an alien compound designed to short out Earth technology. A shadow moved in Lawrence's peripheral vision. He turned, coming face to face with Kralthax. The Zorgon had shed his human disguise, revealing a form that was an unsettling blend of organic and mechanical components. "Impressive," Kralthax said, his voice a metallic rasp. "You've adapted to your modifications faster than anticipated." Lawrence didn't waste time with words. He lunged forward, his hybrid physiology allowing him to move within human speed. Kralthax barely managed to dodge, Lawrence's fist grazing the Zorgon's cybernetic-enhanced cheek. The two combatants clashed in a furious exchange of blows. Kralthax's technological augmentations gave him an edge in raw power, but Lawrence's adaptability allowed him to anticipate and counter the Zorgon's moves with increasing effectiveness. Their fight carried them through the facility, crashing through doors and toppling equipment. Lawrence winced as he realized the damage they were causing to the delicate systems necessary for Deneb's treatment, but he couldn't afford to hold back. Meanwhile, in the main research lab, Dr. Ward and Dr. Reeves worked feverishly to initiate the experimental reproductive process. They carefully extracted genetic material from both Lawrence and Deneb, combining them in a specially designed incubation chamber. "DNA fusion stable," Dr. Reeves announced, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. "Beginning cellular replication process." Dr. Ward nodded, his fingers dancing across the control interface. "Monitoring embryonic development. Wait, what's this?" The holographic display flickered, showing a rapid acceleration in cell division. Dr. Reeves leaned in, her eyes widening. "The hybrid embryo, it's developing at an exponential rate." "Incredible," Dr. Ward breathed. "The combination of Orion adaptive abilities and human genetic resilience. It's created a form of rapid gestation I've never seen before." As the team scrambled to adjust their equipment to accommodate this unexpected development, the lab doors burst open. Lawrence stumbled in, his clothes torn and his body bearing the marks of his fierce battle with Kralthax. The Zorgon operative followed close behind, his cybernetic implants sparking and damaged. Kralthax's eyes locked onto the incubation chamber, recognizing its importance. "No!" Lawrence shouted as Kralthax lunged for the delicate equipment. Time seemed to slow as Lawrence threw himself between Kralthax and the incubation chamber. Drawing on reserves of strength he didn't know he possessed, Lawrence grappled with the Zorgon, driving him back against the wall. Kralthax lashed out with a cybernetic arm, striking a bank of monitoring equipment. Sparks flew as the damaged systems sputtered and died. "The incubation process is destabilizing?" Dr. Reeves cried out, her fingers flying over the controls in a desperate attempt to compensate. With a final surge of effort, Lawrence managed to overpower Kralthax, pinning the Zorgon operative to the ground. "Dr. Ward, some assistance, please." As Dr. Ward moved to restrain Kralthax, Lawrence rushed to the incubation chamber. Without fully understanding why, he placed his hands on the smooth surface of the device. A tingling sensation spread through his palms, and to everyone's amazement, the erratic readings on the monitoring equipment began to stabilize. "It's working," Dr. Reeves said, her voice filled with wonder. "Lawrence, your touch, it's providing the missing genetic link. The hybrid embryo is stabilizing." As the crisis subsided, the team faced a new challenge. The accelerated growth of the hybrid offspring meant they had precious little time to prepare for its arrival. "We need a controlled environment for the final stages of development," Dr. Ward said, already moving to adapt a nearby stasis pod. As they worked to create an artificial womb for the rapidly growing hybrid, Lawrence noticed a change in Deneb's vital signs. "Dr. Reeves, look at this," he called out. Dr. Reeves hurried over, her eyes widening as she took in the readings. "Her condition, it's improving. The hybrid offspring, it must be producing cells and compounds that counteract the Orion genetic mutation." The atmosphere in the lab was electric with the implications of their success. However, their elation was short-lived as a new alarm sounded throughout the facility. "Multiple spacecraft detected entering Earth's atmosphere," the computerized voice announced. "Unknown origin, projected landing zone, research facility perimeter." The team exchanged grim looks, understanding the gravity of the situation. The Galactic Council had come to shut them down. "We need to move," Dr. Ward said, his voice tight with urgency. "We have to protect the hybrid and Deneb. Everything we've worked for, everything we've discovered, it all hangs in the balance." As they prepared to face this new threat, Lawrence looked at the stasis pod now serving as an artificial womb for the hybrid offspring. Within its confines, a being of unprecedented potential was taking shape, a being that might hold the key to saving not just Deneb, but reshaping the future of human-alien relations. The distant rumble of approaching spacecraft filled the air, a reminder that their greatest challenge was yet to come. The distant rumble of approaching spacecraft filled the air, a reminder that their greatest challenge was yet to come. Dr. Elena Reeves sprang into action, her fingers flying across the facility's control panel. "Initiating emergency lockdown," she announced, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "All non-essential personnel, evacuate immediately." Lawrence, still bearing the marks of his battle with Kralthax, straightened his shoulders. "I'll coordinate our defense. Dr. Ward, how's our patient?" Dr. Marcus Ward's eyes widened as he studied the readouts from the artificial womb. "The hybrid's development is accelerating beyond our projections. At this rate, we're looking at a third trimester equivalent in mere hours." The facility shuddered as the first explosions rocked the sky outside. Through the reinforced windows, they could see the flashes of energy weapons as Earth's fighter jets engaged the incoming Galactic Council ships. "We need to move the hybrid and Deneb to a more secure location," Lawrence said, already heading for the door. "I'll clear a path." As Lawrence made his way through the corridors, his enhanced senses picked up every tremor, every distant boom of the aerial battle. He encountered a group of panicked researchers and calmly directed them to the nearest evacuation point. Back in the lab, Deneb's eyes fluttered open. She took in the scene with a mix of confusion and wonder. "What's happening?" she asked, her voice weak but clear. Dr. Reeves moved to her side, explaining the situation in hushed tones. Deneb's eyes widened as she absorbed the information about the experimental procedure and its success. "The hybrid, is it okay?" Deneb asked, her hand instinctively moving to her abdomen. "More than okay," Dr. Ward assured her. "Its rapid development is producing compounds that are stabilizing your condition. You're going to be all right, Deneb." A look of relief washed over Deneb's face, followed quickly by concern. "But the Galactic Council—" "We'll protect you both," Dr. Reeves said firmly. "Lawrence is making sure of that." As if on cue, Lawrence's voice crackled over the intercom. "Path to secure Zone B is clear. We need to move now." Dr. Ward carefully disconnected the artificial womb from its monitoring equipment, preparing it for transport. Dr. Reeves helped Deneb to her feet, supporting her as they made their way out of the lab. The journey through the facility was tense, punctuated by distant explosions and the occasional flicker of emergency lights. Lawrence met them halfway, his eyes constantly scanning for threats. "The human defense forces are putting up a good fight," he reported. "But the Council's tech is superior. We don't have much time." They had just reached Secure Zone B when Dr. Reeves's tablet beeped urgently. She pulled it out, her eyes widening as she analyzed the data. "This is incredible," she breathed. "The hybrid's genetic structure. I think I've found a way to replicate its healing properties without further human Orion reproduction." Lawrence's head snapped up. "That could change everything. What do you need?" Dr. Reeves bit her lip. "The specialized sequencing equipment in Lab 4, but that's in the East Wing, and with the facility under attack—" "I'll go," Lawrence said without hesitation. "It's our best chance to save the Orion species, to save Deneb." Before anyone could protest, Lawrence was moving, his enhanced physiology allowing him to navigate the chaotic facility with preternatural speed and agility. As he approached the East Wing, the sounds of battle grew louder. A section of ceiling collapsed ahead of him, revealing a group of Zorgon infiltrators dropping into the corridor. Lawrence didn't hesitate. He launched himself at the nearest intruder, his fist connecting with a satisfying crunch. The Zorgon stumbled back, clearly surprised by the human strength and speed. The fight was brutal and swift. Lawrence moved with fluid grace, dodging energy blasts and retaliating with powerful strikes. His hybrid physiology allowed him to anticipate his opponent's moves, countering with precision. As the last Zorgon fell, Lawrence heard Dr. Ward's urgent voice over his comlink. "Lawrence, we have a situation. The artificial womb is destabilizing. The hybrid, it's coming now." Lawrence's heart raced as he reached Lab 4, quickly locating the specialized equipment Dr. Reeves needed. As he secured it, a massive explosion rocked the facility. Through a shattered window, he saw several Galactic Council ships landing in the courtyard. Troops began to pour out, led by a tall, imposing figure that Lawrence assumed must be Commander Zarakol. The Galactic Council forces moved with military precision, clearly intent on breaching the facility. Lawrence knew he had to move fast. The fate of Deneb, the hybrid offspring, and potentially both human and Orion species, depended on him reaching secure Zone B with the equipment. As he raced back through the facility, Lawrence encountered waves of Zorgon and Galactic Council forces. He fought his way through, his body pushing to its limits as he utilized every ounce of his newfound abilities. Energy blasts scorched the walls around him, debris rained down from damaged ceilings. But Lawrence pressed on. The weight of the equipment and the toll of continuous combat slowed him, but he refused to give up. Finally, battered and breathing hard, Lawrence reached secure Zone B. The door slid open, revealing a scene of controlled chaos inside. Dr. Ward was hunched over the artificial womb, his face etched with concentration as he prepared for the emergency extraction. Dr. Reeves rushed to take the equipment from Lawrence, immediately setting to work. Deneb sat nearby, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and anticipation. As Lawrence approached her, she reached out and took his hand. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." A loud bang echoed through the facility, followed by the sound of multiple footsteps. The Galactic Council forces were inside, and they were closing in fast. Lawrence squeezed Deneb's hand before turning to face the door, ready to defend his newfound family against whatever came next. The future of two species hung in the balance, and the next few moments would determine the course of human-alien relations for generations to come. The facility trembled as another explosion rocked its foundations. Lawrence braced himself against the doorframe, his enhanced senses on high alert for any sign of incoming threats. Behind him, Dr. Ward's voice cut through the chaos. "It's time," he announced, his tone a mix of excitement and apprehension. "The hybrid's development has reached a critical stage. We need to begin the extraction now." Lawrence turned to see Dr. Ward hunched over the artificial womb, his hands steady despite the gravity of the situation. Deneb watched with wide eyes, her grip on Lawrence's hand tightening as Dr. Ward initiated the emergency extraction procedure. The room fell into a tense silence, broken only by the distant sounds of battle and the steady beep of monitoring equipment. Dr. Ward worked with practiced precision, carefully guiding the hybrid offspring from its artificial sanctuary. "It's a girl," Dr. Ward breathed, cradling the tiny form in his hands. "And she's extraordinary." The hybrid infant was a marvel of human and Orion physiology. Her skin had a faint, iridescent sheen, and her eyes, when they fluttered open, held a depth of awareness that belied her newborn status. Dr. Ward quickly placed her in a specialized incubator designed to support her unique biological needs. "Her development is unprecedented," Dr. Reeves observed, studying the readings on her tablet. "At this rate, we could be looking at accelerated growth far beyond our initial projections." A thunderous crash from the corridor snapped everyone back to the reality of their situation. Lawrence moved swiftly to the door, his muscles tensing for combat. "I'll hold them off," he said, his voice filled with dedication. "Dr. Reeves, you need to get that equipment set up now. It's our only chance." With that, Lawrence plunged into the fray. The corridor was a war zone, filled with acrid smoke and the crackle of energy weapons. Galactic Council forces advanced relentlessly, their alien armor gleaming in the emergency lighting. Lawrence's hybrid physiology came alive in the heat of battle. He moved with inhuman speed and agility, dodging energy blasts and retaliating with powerful strikes. His fists connected with alien armor, leaving dents where they struck. He utilized every surface, walls, ceilings, even his fallen enemies, to maintain his advantage. Through the chaos, Lawrence caught glimpses of a tall, imposing figure directing the assault. Commander Zarkol's presence filled Lawrence with a mix of dread and purpose. He knew he had to keep the commander at bay, whatever the cost. Inside the secure zone, Dr. Reeves worked feverishly to set up the equipment Lawrence had retrieved. Her fingers flew over control panels, initializing the complex machinery that held the key to their breakthrough solution. "The synthesizer is online," she called out to Dr. Ward, "beginning genetic analysis of the hybrid's DNA structure." Dr. Ward nodded, his attention split between monitoring the rapidly growing hybrid and assisting Dr. Reeves. The infant, now resembling a human toddler, watched the proceedings with an eerie intelligence. Deneb struggled to her feet, her face pale but determined. "I want to help," she said, her voice stronger than it had been in weeks. Dr. Reeves opened her mouth to protest, but her words died in her throat as she witnessed an astonishing sight. Deneb raised her hands, and shimmering fields of energy began to form around critical areas of the lab. "An Orion defense mechanism," Deneb explained, her voice strained with effort. "I didn't know if it would work, given my condition." The protective barriers flickered into place just as a group of Galactic Council soldiers breached the outer door. Their energy weapons dissipated harmlessly against Deneb's shields. Outside, Lawrence continued his desperate defense. He had managed to thin the ranks of the invading force, but more kept coming. His enhanced body was beginning to show signs of fatigue, his movements becoming fractionally slower. Seizing an opportunity, Lawrence began to fall back, deliberately leaving a trail for Commander Zarkol to follow. He led the imposing alien towards a section of the facility he knew contained experimental containment fields. Inside the lab, Dr. Reeves let out a cry of triumph. "I've done it! The treatment is synthesized, but—" Her voice trailed off as she studied the data. "What is it?" Dr. Ward asked, looking up from where he was examining the hybrid child, who now appeared to be around 5 years old. "Administering the treatment requires a direct neural connection," Dr. Reeves explained. "It's risky, potentially fatal for the donor." Lawrence's voice crackled over the intercom. "I'll do it," he said without hesitation. "My hybrid physiology makes me the best candidate." As Lawrence's plan to trap Zarkol unfolded, the hybrid child, now looking like a young girl, approached Dr. Ward. Her movements were graceful, her eyes filled with wisdom far beyond her apparent years. "I can help," she said, her voice clear and steady. "I understand the procedure." Dr. Ward's eyebrows shot up in surprise, but he quickly recovered. "Of course," he said, guiding her towards the equipment. "Let's prepare for the treatment." Outside, the tide of battle had begun to shift. Earth's defensive forces, joined by unexpected alien allies, pushed back against the Galactic Council fleet. The possibility of diplomatic resolution loomed on the horizon. In a distant part of the facility, Lawrence finally sprang his trap. Commander Zarkol found himself ensnared in a shimmering containment field, his alien technology rendered useless. With Zarkol neutralized, Lawrence raced back to the lab. He burst through the door, his body battered, but his eyes bright with dedication. "I'm ready," he announced, locking eyes with Dr. Reeves. Dr. Reeves nodded, her face a mask of concentration as she prepared to administer the experimental treatment. The hybrid child worked alongside her with uncanny proficiency, adjusting settings and preparing Deneb for the procedure. As Lawrence was connected to the neural interface, the facility fell into an uneasy quiet. The future of two species, the fate of the hybrid child, and the course of human-alien relations all hung in the balance as Dr. Reeves initiated the treatment sequence. The air crackled with tension and possibility as the procedure began, its outcome poised to reshape the galaxy in ways no one could fully predict. The air crackled with an electric tension as Dr. Reeves's fingers danced across the control panel, initiating the experimental treatment. Lawrence stepped forward, his face a mask of willpower. "I'm ready," he repeated, his voice steady despite the exhaustion evident in his battered form. Dr. Reeves nodded, guiding him to the neural interface station. As Lawrence settled into position, the hybrid child, now resembling a preteen, moved with surprising grace to assist Dr. Ward. Her eyes, filled with an otherworldly wisdom, scanned the monitors with an innate understanding that belied her apparent age. The moment Dr. Reeves engaged the neural link, Lawrence's body went rigid. His eyes sharp, muscles straining against the sudden onslaught of sensation. Across the room, Deneb's form mirrored his reaction, her back arching as their nervous systems synchronized. "Steady," Dr. Ward murmured, his eyes flicking between the two subjects and the readouts flooding his screens. The hybrid child's fingers flew across a secondary console, making minute adjustments with uncanny precision. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A deep, resonant boom echoed through the facility, followed by a surge of power that sent sparks cascading from overloaded circuits. The treatment apparatus whined ominously, its displays flashing warnings. "Containment field breach in Sector 7, a panicked voice crackled over the intercom. "Commander Zarkol is—" The message cut off in a burst of static. Dr. Reeves cursed, her hands frantically working to stabilize the treatment process. "The power surge is disrupting the neural link," she shouted over the cacophony of alarms. "If we don't stabilize it—" Her words were cut short as Lawrence let out a guttural cry. His body convulsed, then went unnaturally still. For a heartbeat, the room held its breath. Then Lawrence's eyes snapped open, glowing with an inner light. Energy crackled around him, arcing between his body and the neural interface. "He's channeling the surge," the hybrid child said, her voice filled with awe, "stabilizing the connection." True to her words, the alarms began to quiet. The treatment apparatus hummed, its rhythm returning to a steady pulse. Dr. Reeves exhaled sharply, her eyes wide as she watched the readouts normalize. "Incredible," she breathed. "He's using his hybrid physiology to regulate the energy flow. I've never seen anything like it." As the minutes ticked by, the signs of improvement in Deneb became impossible to ignore. The sickly pallor of her skin gave way to a healthy glow. Her breathing, once shallow and labored, deepened and steadied. But while Deneb flourished, Lawrence's condition began to deteriorate. Sweat beaded on his forehead, his face contorted in pain. The displays monitoring his genetic structure flashed urgent warnings. "His DNA is destabilizing," Dr. Ward announced, his voice tight with concern. "We need to terminate the procedure now, or we risk losing him." Dr. Reeves moved to disengage the neural link, but Lawrence's hand shot out, gripping her wrist with surprising strength. "No!" he gritted out through clenched teeth. "Keep going." Outside the lab, the sounds of battle intensified. The facility shook with distant explosions. But within the protected confines of Secure Zone B, a different kind of war raged, one fought on the microscopic level, with the fate of two species hanging in the balance. The hybrid child, her growth now accelerating at an astonishing rate, approached the central console. She appeared to be in her late teens, her movements fluid and purposeful. Without a word, she placed her hands on the control panel. The machines hummed in response, displays flickering with new data. "Ooh." "What are you doing?" Dr. Reeves asked, her tone a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Enhancing the interface," the hybrid replied, her eyes closed in concentration. "I can see the patterns, the connections. I can make it better." As she worked, the strain on Lawrence visibly lessened. His rigid posture relaxed slightly, though the glow of energy continued to pulse around him. Dr. Reeves watched in amazement as the treatment's effectiveness spiked, the readouts showing accelerated cellular regeneration in Deneb. A new alarm blared, cutting through the tense atmosphere. Dr. Ward rushed to a secondary monitor, his face paling at what he saw. "We've got incoming," he announced grimly. "The Galactic Council's flagship has entered Earth's atmosphere. They're demanding a direct communication." Dr. Reeves hesitated, torn between the crucial treatment and this new diplomatic crisis. After a moment's deliberation, she turned to Dr. Ward. "Marcus, I need you to handle this. Use your expertise in xenobiology. Make them understand what we're doing here." Dr. Ward nodded, squaring his shoulders as he moved to the communication station. As he began to engage with the Galactic Council, Dr. Reeves returned her focus to the treatment. The hybrid offspring, now a young adult, worked seamlessly alongside her, her innate understanding of both human and Orion biology proving invaluable. The minutes stretched into hours, each moment fraught with tension. Outside, Earth's defensive forces pushed back against the Galactic Council fleet, but within the lab, a more delicate battle unfolded. Lawrence's vitals continued to fluctuate dangerously, while Deneb showed steady improvement. Just as the treatment entered its final critical phase, a violent explosion rocked the facility. The lights flickered ominously, and the distant sound of energy weapons filled the air. Zarkol's loyalists, the hybrid offspring said, her enhanced senses picking up details beyond human perception. They've breached the outer defenses. Dr. Reeves' hands flew across the control panel, her face a mask of concentration. We're almost there, she muttered. Just a few more minutes. But those minutes seemed an eternity as Lawrence's vitals began to crash. Alarms blared, warning of imminent genetic collapse. Dr. Reeves found herself faced with an impossible choice. Continue the procedure to fully cure Deneb at the cost of Lawrence's life, or terminate it prematurely, saving Lawrence but leaving Deneb's treatment incomplete. As Dr. Reeves's hand hovered over the emergency shutdown, the hybrid offspring stepped forward. Her eyes, filled with a depth of understanding beyond her years, met Dr. Reeves's gaze. There's another way, she said softly. Without waiting for a response, she placed one hand on Lawrence's forehead and the other on Deneb's. A soft glow emanated from her palms, spreading to encompass all three of them. The monitors exploded with new data as a three-way connection formed, channeling the hybrid's unique energy into the treatment process. Lawrence's eyes flew open, his vitals stabilizing as the hybrid's energy flowed through him. Deneb's body arched, a gasp escaping her lips, as the enhanced treatment surged through her system. The hybrid stood between them, a conduit of power and healing, her face serene despite the chaos erupting around them. As the final seconds of the treatment ticked away, the door to the lab burst open. Commander Zarkol's loyalists poured in, weapons raised, but they froze at the sight before them, human and Orion, joined by their hybrid offspring, enveloped in a shimmering field of energy that defied their understanding. In that moment, suspended between triumph and disaster, the fate of two species hung in the balance. The treatment neared its completion, but the threat of violence loomed. As Dr. Reeves watched the final readings approach their conclusion, she knew that the next few seconds would determine not just the outcome of their experiment, but the future of interstellar relations. The air crackled with tension and possibility, the lab poised on the knife edge of a new era. Whatever came next would reshape the galaxy in ways no one could have predicted. The air hummed with potential as the hybrid offspring's hands connected Lawrence and Deneb, forming a luminous triangle of energy. In that instant, everything changed. The hybrid's eyes blazed with an inner light, her form seeming to pulse with power. Energy cascaded through her, amplified and refined, before surging into Lawrence and Deneb. Lawrence's rigid posture softened, his vitals stabilizing as the hybrid's unique energy flowed through him. Across the room, Deneb's body arched, a sharp gasp escaping her lips as the enhanced treatment surged through her system. Dr. Reeves watched in awe as the monitors exploded with new data. Incredible, she breathed, her fingers flying across the control panel. The hybrid's intervention is amplifying the treatment's effects exponentially. The transformation was visible even to the naked eye. The sickly pallor of Deneb's skin gave way to a healthy glow, her chest rising and falling with strong, steady breaths. Lawrence, moments ago on the brink of genetic collapse, now stood straighter, his eyes clear and alert. But it was Deneb who underwent the most remarkable change. Dr. Reeves leaned in close to her screens, her eyes widening in disbelief. The Orion mutation. It's reversing itself. Her cells are regenerating, adapting. This is beyond anything we could have hoped for. As the treatment reached its crescendo, the lab door burst open. Commander Zarkol's loyalists poured in, energy weapons raised. They froze, momentarily stunned by the sight before them. The hybrid offspring, her growth now stabilized in the form of a mature adult, reacted with lightning speed. She disengaged from Lawrence and Deneb, turning to face the intruders. Her movements were fluid, almost predatory, as she positioned herself between the attackers and the treatment apparatus. "You will not interfere," she stated, her voice resonant with newfound power. The lead loyalist sneered, raising his weapon. "Stand aside, abomination. This ends now." In response, the hybrid moved. Her enhanced reflexes and strength, a perfect blend of human and Orion genetics, made her a blur of motion. She closed the distance to the first attacker in the blink of an eye, disarming him with a precise strike before using his own weapon to incapacitate two more. Lawrence, invigorated by the treatment, joined the fray. His movements were sure and strong, his newly stabilized hybrid physiology granting him abilities beyond those of a normal human. Together, he and the hybrid offspring formed an impenetrable defense, their coordinated efforts keeping the Loyalists at bay. Dr. Reeves worked frantically at the console, her focus split between monitoring the treatment's final stages and keeping an eye on the battle unfolding before her. "Just a few more seconds," she muttered, willing the progress bar to move faster. Suddenly, the lab's communication system crackled to life. A stern, authoritative voice filled the room. "This is High Counselor Vexara of the Galactic Council. Stand down immediately." The fighting paused, all eyes turning to the lab's main view screen. The imposing figure of High Counselor Vexara appeared, flanked by a contingent of Galactic Council peacekeepers. "I have witnessed the events unfolding in this facility," Vexara continued. "The potential of this human Orion project cannot be understated. Commander Zarkol's Loyalists are hereby ordered to cease all hostile actions." As if to emphasize the point, a shimmering energy field enveloped the Loyalist forces. Their weapons deactivated, rendered useless by advanced Galactic Council technology. With the immediate threat neutralized, Dr. Reeves turned her full attention back to the treatment. The final data points fell into place, and a triumphant smile spread across her face. "It's done," she announced, "and we've achieved more than we ever dreamed possible." She pulled up a holographic display, showcasing the results for all to see. The treatment hasn't just cured Deneb. Thanks to the hybrid offspring's intervention, we've unlocked the key to a universal cure for the Orion genetic mutation. Lawrence stepped closer, his eyes widening as he took in the implications. A universal cure? Without the need for further human Orion breeding? Dr. Reeves nodded, her excitement palpable. "Exactly. We can synthesize it from the hybrid's DNA, mass-produce it. We can save the entire Orion species." The hybrid offspring approached the holographic display, her eyes scanning the data with an innate understanding that surpassed even Dr. Reeves's expertise. She reached out, her fingers dancing through the hologram, manipulating the data in ways that left the human scientist stunned. "I can optimize this," she said, her voice calm but filled with purpose. "Enhance the production process, streamline delivery systems. We can accelerate the timeline significantly." As if on cue, Admiral Zhenli's voice came over the communication system. "Dr. Reeves, I've been briefed on the situation. We're initiating emergency protocols to secure and replicate the cure. Production facilities worldwide are being repurposed as we speak." High Counselor Vexara stepped forward, addressing the room. "In light of these developments, the Galactic Council proposes a restructuring of our policies. Earth has demonstrated not only technological prowess, but also a capacity for compassion that could revolutionize interspecies relations. We suggest forming a new coalition, with Earth at its center, to address future challenges faced by any sentient species in the galaxy." The lab fell silent as the weight of Vexara's words sank in. Dr. Reeves looked around, seeing the mix of hope and uncertainty on the faces of her team. Her gaze settled on Lawrence and Deneb, standing side by side, their shared ordeal having forged a connection that transcended species. "Well," Dr. Reeves said, a smile tugging at her lips, "it seems our little experiment has opened up a whole new frontier. The question is, are we ready for what comes next?" As if in answer, the facility's long-range sensors began to light up. Ships were appearing in Earth's orbit, vessels of various designs and origins, carrying Orion refugees, seeking the cure, and representatives from other species, eager to forge new alliances. The hybrid offspring turned from the holographic display, her eyes gleaming with the promise of possibilities yet unexplored. "We stand at the threshold of a new era," she said, her voice carrying the weight of both her human and Orion heritage. "The challenges ahead are many, but so are the opportunities. Together, we can reshape the very fabric of galactic society." Dr. Reeves nodded, squaring her shoulders as she faced her team. "Then let's get to work. We have a cure to distribute, alliances to forge, and a galaxy of new scientific frontiers to explore. As the research team sprang into action, the air in the lab crackled with renewed energy and purpose. The dawn of a new age of interstellar cooperation was breaking, and humanity stood ready to take its place among the stars. The bustling activity in the lab gradually subsided as the immediate crisis passed. Dr. Reeves and her team worked tirelessly to synthesize and distribute the universal cure, their efforts supported by a global network of scientists and medical professionals. Within weeks, the first batches of the treatment were dispatched to Orion refugee camps around the world. As Earth became the epicenter of a new era in interstellar relations, the research facility expanded rapidly. What was once a modest laboratory complex transformed into a sprawling campus, its gleaming buildings a testament to humanity's newfound role in galactic affairs. Lawrence, fully recovered from his ordeal, found himself thrust into the spotlight as Earth's primary liaison to the newly formed Galactic Coalition. His unique perspective as a human-Orion hybrid made him an ideal bridge between species. On a crisp autumn morning, he stood before a holographic display in his office, reviewing the latest proposals for interspecies cooperation. "High Counselor Vexara," Lawrence said, addressing the imposing Galactic Council member on the screen. "I've reviewed the Genetic Diversity Initiative. I believe with some adjustments, we can implement it across all member worlds within the next solar cycle." Vexara nodded, her alien features softening into what Lawrence had come to recognize as a smile. "Your insights continue to impress, Lawrence. The Coalition values Earth's commitment to fostering harmony among our diverse species." As the call ended, Lawrence's gaze drifted to a framed photo on his desk. It showed him and Deneb, both looking healthier and happier than ever, standing before a newly constructed building on the outskirts of the research complex. The Orion Cultural Revival Center, as it was called, had become Deneb's passion project in the months following her recovery. Across the campus, Deneb led a group of Orion refugees through the center's main hall. The walls were adorned with intricate tapestries depicting Orion history, while display cases housed artifacts salvaged from their dying homeworld. "Here," Deneb said, gesturing to a shimmering holographic sculpture, "we've recreated the great spires of Orion Prime. Though our planet is lost, our culture lives on. By sharing our heritage with Earth and other Coalition worlds, we ensure that the spirit of Orion endures." The refugees murmured in appreciation, their eyes wide with wonder. For many, it was the first time they had seen such faithful reproductions of their homeworld's treasures. Deneb felt a warmth in her chest, knowing that her work was helping her people heal and adapt to their new lives on Earth. In another wing of the research complex, Aurora, as the hybrid offspring had come to be known, stood before a team of human and alien scientists. Her fingers danced through the air, manipulating a complex three-dimensional model of neural pathways and circuitry. "By integrating quantum entanglement principles with our enhanced genetic structure," Aurora explained, her voice calm but filled with excitement, "we can create a biotechnological interface that allows for instantaneous communication between organic and artificial systems." The scientists leaned forward, their diverse features united in expressions of awe. One of them, a multi-limbed being from a distant gas giant, raised an appendage. "But how do we account for the varying neural structures across species?" Aurora smiled, her fingers weaving through the hologram to highlight specific nodes. "That's the beauty of it. The interface adapts to individual neural patterns, creating a customized connection for each user. It's not just a communication tool. It's a bridge between minds, between species, between the organic and the artificial." As the implications of Aurora's work sank in, the room erupted in excited chatter. The potential applications were staggering: enhanced space exploration, revolutionary medical treatments, and forms of communication previously thought impossible. Months passed, and Earth's transformation continued at a breakneck pace. The skylines of major cities changed as alien architecture blended with human designs. Spaceports grew busier by the day, with ships from across the galaxy arriving to trade, share knowledge, or simply experience the unique melting pot that Earth had become. On a warm summer evening, Lawrence and Deneb stood hand in hand on a balcony overlooking the research complex. The sky above was alive with the twinkling lights of orbiting ships and stations. Sometimes I can hardly believe how much has changed, Deneb said softly, leaning her head on Lawrence's shoulder. Lawrence squeezed her hand gently. I know. It feels like a lifetime ago that we first met. And now... His voice trailed off as he pulled a small box from his pocket. Deneb's eyes widened as Lawrence dropped to one knee, opening the box to reveal a ring that seemed to capture the very essence of starlight. Deneb, Lawrence said, his voice filled with emotion, our journey together has transformed not just our lives, but the entire galaxy. Will you take the next step with me? Will you be my wife? Tears welled up in Deneb's eyes as she nodded, unable to speak. As Lawrence slipped the ring onto her finger, the sky above them erupted in a dazzling display of lights. Aurora's doing, no doubt, as she had an uncanny knack for knowing just when to make a moment truly spectacular. News of their engagement spread quickly, capturing the imagination of beings across the cosmos. Their union was seen as a powerful symbol of the new era of interspecies harmony. Plans for the ceremony began immediately, with input from human and Orion cultural experts to create a truly unique celebration. As Lawrence and Deneb began this new chapter of their lives, Aurora continued her groundbreaking work. In a massive orbital construction yard, she oversaw the early stages of her most ambitious project yet, a space station unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. Harmony Station, Aurora explained to a group of wide-eyed engineers, will be more than just a neutral meeting ground. It will be a living symbol of what we can achieve when we come together, incorporating the best of every world, every species, every culture. The engineers nodded, their diverse forms a testament to the very unity Aurora spoke of. As they dispersed to begin their work, Aurora's gaze drifted to the stars beyond. The future stretched out before them, filled with challenges and opportunities beyond imagining. But with the bonds they had forged, between humans and Orions, between Earth and the galaxy, Aurora knew they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. The construction of Harmony Station continued apace, its gleaming structure growing day by day, a beacon of hope and progress visible from Earth's surface. As the galaxy watched and waited, the stage was set for the next great leap in their shared journey, a journey that had begun with a simple act of compassion and now promised to reshape the very fabric of cosmic society.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.